Hey, welcome to my talk, The Passion of the JavaScript Developer. The title is a reference to Mel Gibson's movie about tortures, and the comparison is that being a JavaScript developer does feel like torture sometimes. And I'm gonna be talking about memes, and this is one of them. Just because your language is widely used doesn't mean it is any good. If those JavaScript developers could read, they'd be very upset. Super funny meme. I've seen a lot of memes like that, and I can totally relate, and I laugh uh, genuinely. But in many years of working with JavaScript, I learned a lot more about the context, and I also learned about how community overcomes the mess that JavaScript really is, and I also learned that there are some good parts with JavaScript, and so I just want to share my view of it with you guys without threatening memes in any way because I love them. I hope you will like it. Uh, yeah, my name is Vlad Fiskov. I'm an engineering manager and lead at Kaizen. We lend infrastructure and machine learning models to compete in billions of mobile ad auctions every day. I started coding for money in 2009 and I never stopped, and I feel very strongly about JavaScript. Let's first talk about the current state of things, um, just to demonstrate maybe how relevant this is. Um, as you may know, all major websites use JavaScript one way or another. There is no alternative, but it's also present in servers written in Node.js. Then there are a lot of successful desktop apps built with JavaScript and Electron, which is a browser and Node.js bundled in a single standalone package. And examples are Visual Studio Code, Slack, Discord, and many more. Then there are native mobile apps that you can install in Apple App Store or Google Play Store um, that are built with JavaScript and React Native and Cordova. Some of them are Facebook, Instagram, and more. Then there are progressive web apps, which have the biggest support by Google. And if you like, example is the YouTube Music website. If you open it in Google Chrome, it will suggest to you to download this website as an app, and that's the progressive part of it, that it progresses from being a website to an app. Then there are apps built in JavaScript for TVs, like Samsung Smart TV and Apple TV. You can also control robots and the Internet of Things using JavaScript and Johnny 5 platform. And finally, JavaScript is good enough to assist astronauts on space missions because NASA and SpaceX use JavaScript for mission critical UIs and APIs. So, yeah, despite all the perceived bad quality and bad reputation, JavaScript is still chosen by big corporations and big organizations. So they must know something, right? So let's dig deeper into it. Let's unravel this conspiracy. Uh, so let's look at the history of it first. JavaScript was created in 1995 by this handsome fella, Brendan Eich. He only took 10 days to do it. And originally, it was just a part of Netscape Navigator, which was the first internet browser. Then Microsoft saw the success and added their own version called JScript to Internet Explorer. And so there were already two implementations of a language, and it was necessary to have a standard specification somewhere. And this responsibility was given to European Computer Manufacturers Association, or ECMA. And in 1997, they published their first edition of such a standard. They called it ECMAScript. Since then, this organization has published more editions, and browser manufacturers and JavaScript engine developers have been following this standard, implementing it piece by piece according to their own priorities and agenda. So essentially, that's what JavaScript is. It's a document on the internet with a bunch of different implementations that differ either slightly or a lot. So what are the problems with this standard? It follows a thorough bureaucracy. Uh, there is a committee and many phases a feature has to go through to be added. So it's slow to add new features. Plus, all the concerned parties are enormous in numbers. So yeah, it is slow. Then this standard, at the end of the day, is just a suggestion to companies like Apple and Microsoft. So they might postpone implementing certain features of the standard forever. They might deviate slightly from the standard, or they might develop their own features that are not part of the standard. And the final nail in the coffin is the outdated browsers that users are still using. So whatever new features got through the document and the uh, company agenda may still not be available to your users because they use outdated browsers. And secondly, whatever old mistakes JavaScript had in the beginning or at any point in time, they have to stay there forever, and you cannot just deprecate some problematic stuff in JavaScript. You have to drag it on and on until the end of time because some users still use outdated browsers. So yeah, it does seem grim, but community came up with a few cool ideas and solutions to this problem, and it all begins with just tracking the differences between browser versions, and that's what caniuse.com database does. Um, Essentially, yeah, it's a registry. You can look up a certain JavaScript feature, and it will show you in which browser versions it has full support, partial support, or no support at all. And it also shows you how many users worldwide will have no problem with this feature. So here, for example, 96% of users worldwide will be able to view your website with this feature. Then community took it further, community of enthusiasts, and implemented a set of transpilation tools whose aim is to make your code compatible with older versions. So essentially, you provide a config and you select which browser versions you want to target. So here, not Internet Explorer, the latest two versions of the browsers of every other browser, and every browser version that has more than 5% usage worldwide. And then you write whatever code you want using the new features or old ones, and the set of transpilation tools will make sure to do their best and make your code compatible with these versions. So 3 lines of code may become an abomination like this, but will work in latest two versions. This set of tools is so good actually that the internet giants like Facebook and Google actually include it in their major frameworks like Angular and React. And the whole situation does resemble this meme. All modern digital infrastructure sits on a project some random person in Nebraska has been thanklessly maintaining since 2003. So again, huge problems with JavaScript that don't seem to have a solution, but community persevered. Let's talk about the design that was established in the beginning, the way I see it. And I think it's like the Wild West with the cowboys, and horses roaming free, because it's easy to start writing in JavaScript. It can You can get away with errors, and it's easy to snatch and use stuff from the internet because every JavaScript page is open source. Um, but there are problems with it, just like in the Wild West, where cowboys would start shooting everybody. In JavaScript, there are also problems related to its design, and most come from the fact that JavaScript is loosely typed, so it has poor tooling, and it doesn't help you when coding. Like you may make a lot of typos and a lot of mistakes while you're coding, and the code editor will not be able to help you because it's gonna be confused a lot by your code. And another side effect of this is that there is automatic typecasting, so it's perfectly valid to add an empty array to an empty string and then add a zero on top and get something in return. But what you will get is very confusing, and yeah, it's just very confusing. Then declaring variables is actually optional in pure JavaScript. Some mistakes will be ignored, meaning that you may have a broken line of code and JavaScript will just go through it as if it's not there, and you wouldn't even know the code is broken. Then, a surprise to Java developers, this keyword is kind of a variable in JavaScript. And again, you got to be careful with it because you might not expect what's going to be in there. Um, then, loose function signatures, meaning that you can call a function with as many parameters as you want, and JavaScript will be fine with it. And if you make a mistake, JavaScript will again not tell you about this. Uh, but there is tech to bring order to this chaos. And first tech I recommend is the strict mode, which is part of the JavaScript standard. You just add one line of code, use strict at the top of your script, and you already get a much better version of the JavaScript. So you will be forced to declare variables correctly, and you will get a lot better error reporting. Then you can also add a code linter to your development process and get a uniform code style across your app, spaces, semicolons, etc. But also you will get a complexity warning wherever you have a code that is too complex. And yeah, you will have to simplify it somehow, which is a good practice to make your code a lot more readable. Then there is TypeScript by Microsoft. Essentially, you can configure it and make JavaScript strictly typed as if it was some sort of Java. And what's great about it is the tooling, as I said earlier, because once you do this, the code editor will be able to help you tremendously. It will fix your errors for you. It will highlight the typos you make. It's great, and it's also done in a way that you can use JavaScript with third-party libraries like jQuery that were written in JavaScript, and you can still use it in your TypeScript app because somebody else created type definitions for it. For example, I can create type definitions for jQuery, publish it, and install it as a separate package, and voila, I get everything working in TypeScript. So very convenient. Parallel computing is something I feel strongly is a reason why JavaScript is perceived as a too complex and difficult and confusing. So, but I think it's actually a good part of JavaScript, and I will compare it to the classical way of doing parallel computing. Um, and by classical, I mean two programs running really in parallel. on separate threads. So in this example, I ran button click program on thread 1 and key press program on thread 2. Both programs start at the same time, step 1 and step A. Both programs finish with their first step and move on to the second step. Second step finishes for both of them at the same time, and the third step starts. Finally, both programs finish at the same time. That's I don't think it's too difficult to comprehend. It's just two things running truly in parallel. But there are problems with applying it to JavaScript, in my opinion. And first problem is sharing data between threads is not easy. Imagine that one thread is processing some data, and then second thread uh, changes this data midway, and now the data is corrupted for the first step because because of processing. Um, so yeah, there are ways to prevent this, obviously, but they are not easy for sure. And second issue is that when a thread needs some data from an external data source, it has to send the request and wait and stay idle until this data source returns something. So that's again that's not super optimized. And then also uh, there is always a limit to the number of threads on any given CPUs. So threads are limited, and then some of them just stay idle, which is not optimized. And the final problem is that JavaScript has to work on weak CPUs where the number of threads is even more limited. And why it needs to do that is because you don't want to lose users or buyers of your product just because they have a weak computer or a phone. So instead, JavaScript does something different. They call it event loop. Essentially, it's just a single thread, and since it's a single thread, there is no true parallel computing, and things are being processed one step at a time. Let's look at one example. Here again, button click and key press programs need to run at the same time. But since it's a single thread, only the step 1 of button click can run right now. So that's what it does. And at the end of step 1, there is a request to a server, for example, to get some data. And so this line, this arrow, represents a request to the server, and this is the JavaScript engine. And step 1 sends an instruction: call my step 2 when you're done. So this JavaScript engine receives this instruction and starts waiting for the server response. Meanwhile, step 1 is now finished and the thread is idle again, so it can pick up something else. And now the key press program can start, and step A of key press program starts. And at the end of it, there is another request sent to the server asking for some other data, and an instruction to call step B, when the response comes from the server. In this case, the latter request was resolved faster. So the server responded much faster than the first request. So meanwhile, request 1 is still going on. The response from this from step A is now put in the task queue as per instruction from the key press program. So you remember the instruction was call my step B. So the JavaScript engine doesn't call the step B directly. Instead, it puts it in the task queue. And then the thread, since it got idle after step A finished, picked up the step B from the task queue, and now it's occupied with step B. And while it's occupied, step 2 got put into the task queue because the response from the server came from the very first request. And step 2 is put in the queue, cannot be picked up yet because thread is busy with step B. Step B finishes and moves on to step C, again occupying the thread. And so step 2 yet again cannot be picked up, so it becomes impatient. Finally, step C finishes as well, and now step 2 can be picked up by the thread. And you see step 2 is very happy about this. Yeah, step 2 finishes and step 3 finishes as well, and we're done. So that's how it works. And the sharing of the data is easy here because no two steps access data at the same time. They don't run at the same time ever. So you can just have a global variable, and one step can write into it, another can read from it. Now, next, oh yeah. So the parallelism is very deep in JavaScript. Like the engine forces you to use the event loop and the task queue for every little thing you have to do in JavaScript. And so every program in JavaScript is parallel by default, like this. And parallelism in general is not an easy task. Never is an easy task. It's much easier to just say, do this, then that, then that. Then architect a program that utilizes parallel computing, and JavaScript is by default like that. So that's a big complexity for a developer. And there are patterns and libraries to change the parallelism a little bit, change syntax of it, and like reactive extensions or async package for Node.js, promises. Those are all cool techniques, and the challenge of the JavaScript developer is first architect the parallel computing part of a program, and secondly use the right tools for the right situations. There's a great talk on YouTube by Philip Roberts at JSConf EU called "What the heck is the event loop anyway?" This is how I learned about the event loop, and I highly recommend it. Tech to kick it up a notch to improve parallelism. Web workers are additional threads that you can start, and the limitation is that these web workers cannot access cookies or HTML elements. So use case is pretty narrow in my opinion. You can send messages to it and you can receive messages back. And they are great for heavy computational mathematical computations. For example, Bitcoin mining, if you ever want to do that, web workers would be the choice. Then there is a special kind of web workers called service workers. And the idea is that they can work even if website is not open. So they're great for push notifications and pre-caching. When you download a new version of website beforehand, and then when user visits the website, the new version is already there, so loads faster. And another way to improve JavaScript performance is to move animations and element positioning away from JavaScript into CSS. If it's possible, it is preferable because CSS is not part of JavaScript main thread. Inheritance is very funky, and it is more powerful, but also a lot more confusing and error prone, in my opinion. And essentially, it's based on prototypes. The idea is that if an object doesn't have a property or a method, the engine will ask for the same property or a method, its prototype. And the prototype itself can have a prototype. So the engine will ask for the thing up the prototype chain until it finds the first match. It allows you to do multiple inheritance via mixins. It's not necessarily a great thing, and community uses classes a lot nowadays. All the frameworks use classes like Angular and Vue.js. But you got to be aware of the fact that they are a syntactic sugar built on prototypes. So sometimes you might encounter some limitation which comes from this fact. And yeah, classes are relatively a new thing in JavaScript. They were added to the standard in 2015. Yeah, so again, something that JavaScript improved upon. The prototype logic is still there, still available, will always be there, but classes are more convenient to use. Now, HTML and CSS, these are technologies not directly related to JavaScript, and they're all only relevant for front-end guys. But nevertheless, they are worth noting that some JavaScript developers who work on front end have to know this, partly because of the reason I said earlier, like CSS is preferable. So you gotta know the latest features to know how to optimize your JavaScript code. Like if CSS already supports something cool, you better move it to CSS, what you had in JavaScript before. And also, just the fact that positioning and responsiveness are major challenges, it also makes you need CSS features, new CSS features, because it has always been like that. And you know, the websites become even more beautiful with every year. So really, you need a solid technology behind it to make it look good. And also, um, I don't like the fact that HTML and CSS are looked down upon as if they're not like programming languages or whatever. I think it's very hard to write good front end, and it takes skill, it takes creativity. Yeah, so just wanted to say that. And my personal recommendation, which helped me a lot, like Flexbox, is amazing. Once I learned it, I could solve 90% of the issues I had with positioning and responsiveness. So recommend. 26 years of evolution of JavaScript. What do we have? So the products of JavaScript are exposed to literally billions of users. It has the largest developer community. Because of that, I think 41 of the 100 most started repositories on GitHub are JavaScript related. And if you're a front-end guy, just pick one of the Vue.js, React, or Angular frameworks because they're completely safe to work with. They have rich ecosystems and enormous amount of recipes for every kind of situation. And some cool concepts from those frameworks are virtual DOM, ahead of time compilation, and reactivity via proxies in Vue.js, worth learning. So yeah, with this context, I feel very secure about reading memes like I mentioned in the beginning, and I do appreciate them still, and will always laugh at them, and will always share them. So keep on making those. But yeah, I hope this was interesting, and thank you very much. Make sure you're also you check out our kaizen.io/careers page because we are hiring. Thank you very much. See ya.